start from the beginning. Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize my sound wasn't on. Can y'all hear me? Hello. Here it is. There we go again. All right. So I think you can hear me now. Somebody give me an indication. Can you hear me now? Oh boy, there it is. I am talking about failure over and over again. And here we are now where we're going to have to live this thing out in real time. Hallelujah. Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all doing? It is so good to have you on today. And I am coming to you today because I wanted to share some thoughts that I have been working through around failure and finding your way through. And so now that you can hear me, won't you go ahead and share. If there's anybody who you think might need a message around resilience and staying in there, this will be a perfect message for you. As you do that and help me share, you can see here that I'm having an event on March the 21st, 2021. And we are coming together for an event called Bloom in a Day. It is a free transformational summit that is featuring Alicia Jones, Sarah McDougall, Cheryl Pullins, and Mignon Francois. It'll happen on March the 21st from March 21st, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can sign up for free for that event at bloomday.lolajohnston.com. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end. In the middle, I wanted to talk with you about this idea of resilience. And if you, again, have anybody who needs to know that you are worth trying for, you are worth talking to, you are worth speaking up for, then I'm going to invite you to invite them to this broadcast. So let's start from the beginning. Try again. This person here is familiar, I believe, to everybody who is watching. She is Serena Williams. She is arguably one of the best athletes on the planet. And we have watched her in the last couple of years try to break a record that seems to elude her. She is the second in the world for how many Grand Slams she has won, and now wanting to beat the person who holds the record. She has been unable to tie or beat that record because it seems like she is, really faltering in these final moments. Many have asked some questions about Serena. Does this signal the end of her career? Does this mean that she needs to just lay off? How many times will she continue to do this over and over again? So there's a sports commentator who in 2019 said of Serena, Williams is still great, but her aura is diminished after a third consecutive loss in the slam final. This is where she only had 3 consecutives, but she has now had 9 Grand Slam losses since her return to tennis after the birth of her daughter, Olympia, in 2017. So when you think about Serena, what do you think she should do from this point? And it'll be interesting to see what your comments are. What should Serena do with 9 losses consecutively? She's gone. She's been in Australia. She's been in New York. She's been, I think, in London and hasn't been able to come across the line. Seems like Naomi Osaka is the new one and she is gone. What should she do? And I think that as people talk about Serena Williams and what she should do, it's kind of a commentary on how we handle our own failures and the ways that we relate to ourselves when we don't quite make the mark. I had some real pressure just now, speaking for almost 4 minutes without any sound and being embarrassed and feeling like maybe I should just hang up and just go on about my day. Failure has a way of punking us if we allow allow it to. And I believe that as we're looking at Serena, that many people are saying, well, just sit down and let failure have its way. Serena has to this point been fighting through that, but there was some signals for us during the end of that Australian Open that maybe she is about to succumb. And as she put her hand on her chest and cried and teared up during that press conference, I could see myself how there have been multiple moments in my life, in my career, where I wasn't measuring up, where I felt like I could perform better, where I felt like things should be better, like I should know better, like my education should have performed better in this moment, but it didn't. And in so many moments where I was just that close to winning and I didn't. And I believe that all of us, especially in this season, have to start asking ourselves, how are we going to relate to failure? How are we going to allow ourselves to navigate those spaces? Do we give up when we fail over and over again? Is failure an indicator that we should just hang it up and move on? Does failure mean that we don't belong in that space? Or is there an opportunity for much more? So I want to ask the question of you, and maybe you can ask this question of yourself. What do you do when you fail at the same thing over and over again? Do you just pack up your stuff and go? Do you give yourself another shot? How many times do you have the opportunity to fail before you give up on you? How many times do you allow yourself not to make the mark before you say, I'm hanging this thing up. It's over. It's done. I'm finished. So I put this down here because it's now the middle of March, and it's about the time I've noticed in my gym where the numbers that used to be there in January are not there anymore. So many people had started the year exercising, drinking water, eating well, and it's about this time where we kind of slink back into our old habits. And so some of us are struggling with these diets, right? We said this year is going to be the year that I'm going to lose those last 10 pounds. I'm going to ditch them. But around March, we start looking at the scale and realize that it's not going down. The numbers are not going down as much as we thought that they would. They're kind of, getting stagnant. Even in my own diet, I'm thinking about, man, as the pressure of performance, creeps up on me for the end of this first quarter, I find myself, kind of going back to comfort food, as many people do. So how do you relate when you're on your 100th diet, in the last 10 years, when you find yourself saying that you really want to lose weight, that you really want to have a healthier lifestyle, that the next time you go to your doctor, you want your doctor to be astounded by those numbers, but you really recognize that your diet or your diet habits or your cravings get the best of you. I realize that there's a couple of responses that usually happen. The first one is usually guilt. So we find ourselves looking down on ourselves and feeling saddened about what happened. And guilt says to us, my failure is bad and it is permanent. Okay. If we allow guilt to get out of proper perspective, guilt can say my failure is bad and it's permanent. And so there are people who are walking around with the guilt, the weight, with the internal sadness that something they did was bad, and it lingers sometimes even longer than the event or the event's repercussions last. And so some of us are guilty about something that we did in childhood or something that happened around us in childhood. Others are carrying the guilt and the shame of things that have happened, and I want to get to shame later, but carrying the guilt of things that have happened when we were teenagers. Guilt, if we don't rein it in, can cause us to feel bad about an event for even longer than the event or its fallout actually happened. The second thing that we find ourselves dealing with is shame. Okay. So guilt says, I feel sad or I feel sorry for an event that happened. Shame says my failure is my identity. I am bad. So when we start to feel shame, we start to look at ourselves like there's something wrong or flawed or broken about us. And so we can find ourselves looking in the mirror and start talking about how we are or who we are or what commentary this behavior has on us, that we are a bad person, that we are a failure, that we have challenges, that we will never be better. And so shame goes beyond guilt. It goes beyond the activity, and it shows the activity or uses the activity as proof that something is wrong with us. And so some of us, we don't just feel sorry about what we did. We're feeling sorry about ourselves. We feel like there's nothing good that can come from us. We have given up on ourselves. And then the last one, I want to use this word, which has often been connected with the way that people view their bodies. The word is a big word, dysmorphia. It means that the view that a person sees of themselves in the mirror is vastly distorted from the reality of who they are. So it's almost like walking in one of those mirror houses, those crazy mirrors where you walk in and you're like 2 feet tall and your hips are out to here. Some people, when they see themselves in the mirror, and it doesn't help being a part of the American culture, which usually makes people feel like they are fatter or less healthy than they actually are because of our emphasis on the way people look. But dysmorphia causes us to have a distorted view of what it is that we have, what it is that we see, and it is a negatively distorted view of what it is that we see in the mirror. So this dysmorphia, failure dysmorphia says, my failure is the worst failure possible, and it is what people see when they see me. I remember being in a meeting with a pastor that had just had a really hard time in his church. Now, I was aware of that hard time, but I could see in that pastor's aura and the way that the pastor carried themselves, that as they were walking around the meeting, that weight of what had happened was what they assumed that people saw when they saw them. So they assumed that everybody was talking about it, that everybody thought it was a failure, and that somehow they were the spotlight of that meeting. Now, the failure was a pretty big failure, but in reality, we were really just enjoying the meeting. We weren't focused on that person pretty much at all. I mean, but that person's view was that everybody was watching them and that everybody knew what happened, and everyone disagreed with the position that pastor took. I realize that so many of us walk around in life feeling the same way. We have made a mistake that maybe a few people know about and that a few people care about, but we walk around as though everybody knows about it and everybody cares about it. When in reality, most people are so narcissistic and self-serving that they don't really think about anybody else but themselves. They could probably think about you for the few moments that you might come through their social media feed, but even then, they are more so thinking about their life, about their needs, about their experiences, and do not care about us. But what dysmorphia will do is cause us to overestimate their opinions so that we are unable to live comfortably in our own skin. And I don't know about you, but I am so tired of the way that guilt and shame and dysmorphia have robbed me of good life, of good health, of good mental space. Is there anybody else in there that would say that I am just sick and tired of being robbed, of being punked, of being pushed aside, of being cornered, of being limited by what's going on in my own head, by the voices that are talking to me? Like, I'm not crazy. I don't have a diagnosis, but there are ghosts from my past that talk to me, that tell me that I am not able to reach this pinnacle, that I am unable to be successful, that people don't like me, that I am unattractive. And I realize that those ghosts from the past that talk to us are oftentimes the ghosts of our parents and of people whose opinion or approval that we wanted as children and we did not get. So you might have the ghosts of little kids that you went to school with, or the ghosts of your parents who you never could, you never could please, that, even if you got A's on your report card, it needed to be an A plus, or you might have been laughed at because you tripped and fell in a parking lot. And many of us are walking around as grown 30, 40, and 50-year-old people, even 60 and 70-year-old individuals. And we are still a slave of what happened to us in grade school because we have not challenged the voices that come to our heads when we hear those ideas of guilt, those ideas of shame, those ideas of dysmorphia. So I just want to pause here and say, does anybody see themselves in this picture where you look in the mirror and it might not be how you see your body, but it may be how you see where you should be in your mind, in your estimation right now, or where you are right now financially and where you believe that you should be financially. Maybe you made some crazy mistakes. Maybe you've, had a degree or two more than you should have, or stayed in school too long, and now your student loans are more than you can manage. And so we look at our problems, we look at our failures, and we see this. We look and we are in one shape, but we see another. We are in one condition and we see another. And I just want to speak to someone today and say that there is freedom from the different traps that you find yourself in your mind. Some of us have these booby traps in our mind, but they do not have to stay. We can actually confront the ghosts of our past. We can confront the limiting beliefs. We can confront those ideas that tell us that we're not as good as we ought to be, or we're not as far as we should be, and we can actually find ourselves in a better position. I mean, can I pause here and say that there is freedom for us? There is freedom for us in Christ. There is freedom for us in a good therapist. There's freedom for us in cutting off certain people. There's freedom for us in limiting our social media. And there is freedom for us when we simply choose to be on our own team, to determine that I am going to speak up against the voices that are in my head. Can I pause here and say that you do not have to allow those voices in your head to speak without commentary? You can actually speak back to the voice. Now, somebody's going to say, now, come on, that's schizophrenia. That's NPD right there. But I'm telling you, you cannot allow the voices in your mind that are telling you that you're not able to get another degree, you're not able to do a job, that you don't belong in a certain neighborhood, that you can't make a certain amount of money, that you're not going to lose weight, that you can't allow those voices to go unanswered. And so maybe this Thursday, as you're watching this broadcast from wherever you are, you simply needed to hear me say that it's time to start speaking up for yourself. I was a kid who didn't have money, who was the shortest in the class oftentimes. And there were many times where teachers and students took advantage and said unkind things to me because of those reasons. And I wished that I had someone to speak up for me. For a long time then, it caused me to assume a victim mentality because I was standing in my life, even as an adult, still wishing for someone to stand up for me, still wishing and wanting someone to speak up for me, until it dawned on me that I had to be the one to stand up for myself. I had to be the one to stand up and say, I am intelligent. I am more than able to rise to this occasion. I am skilled. I am talented. I'm good at what I do. In fact, I am worth every penny I have paid and more. My time is valuable. My perspective is valuable. When I speak, people ought to listen. You know what I'm saying? I had to start believing that for myself. And let me tell you something. That although people didn't rush to my aid when I was just a little kid or when I was a young woman wishing that someone would speak up for me, what people did do When I started to believe that I had a perspective that was worthy of listening to, when I believed that I was good at what I did and I was worthy of what I was paid, then people started to respond to my confidence in myself. When I began to believe that I was worthy, that I was intelligent, that I was smart, that I was able, that I did good work, that I was a good friend, that I was a good pastor, then people started to believe it. And so sometimes it is even interesting to see how people respond when they meet me. They respond as though I'm like really somebody. And I was like, well, shoot, I really am somebody. But it wasn't because they started it. I had to start it. And I want to say to you today that if you find yourself in this position, that you are going to have to start it for yourself, believing in you in such a way that now you are doing good work. Now you're adding intelligent commentary. Now you are doing the type of work that brings you before kings and queens. You are the woman. You are the man because you believe so. So watch this. Fear will cause us to believe that our mistakes forever change the course of our history and leave us powerless to correct that course. But nothing about that is true. You can always change course. You can always do better. You can always have another chance as long as there's life in your body. Even the worst mistakes, even the worst losses can be gained. I mean, one of the crazy things, I couldn't believe it when I realized the truth about why this thing between Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle went so long. And I recognized, because I read a story, that there was a time where Piers Morgan was trying to pursue friendship with Meghan Markle. Now, how far he wanted that friendship to go, we're not clear, but he was trying to pursue friendship with her, and she was responding for a time. They were Instagram friends. He was DMing her and she was responding to those DMs, and they even went out to drink one time. But the story goes that that evening, after Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle had some drinks together, that the end of that evening she had a date with Prince Harry, and she never talked to Piers Morgan again. So Piers Morgan, now, from that moment that he realized that he was ghosted, took it upon himself to speak negatively about Meghan Markle every time he got an opportunity. And people are trying to wonder what in the world is wrong with him. But I realized that he took the opportunity to go after Meghan Markle because of his fear, right? That her commentary or her not responding to him the way that he wanted to was a commentary on him. He took it in a way where that rejection, right? That being shaded or that being curved now was a commentary on him. And so he was going to destroy her for the way that her curving him made him feel. And even though we could look at Piers Morgan and talk about how wrong he is, how often have we done the same thing? When somebody has done something that we feel is a commentary on us, when they haven't responded to us the right way in our minds, in the way that we wanted them to, when we feel rejected, we all of a sudden turn into a monster. And that is fear. It is rooted in fear. Rooted in fear that this person cannot be replaced. Rooted in fear, I'm never going to meet another Meghan Markle. Now, he's not going to meet another Meghan Markle, but that's not really our issue, right? But we have this fear that these things cannot be replaced, that it is a commentary on us forever. And now Piers Morgan is going to live in infamy for a little while, we hope, because of what he did. When if he would have just shook it off, right? And tried to reapproach Meghan and Harry as friend, then he might have been okay, you know? And I believe that our ability to recover means that we have to have courage, that we have to replace fear with courage, the courage to face this unpleasant moment and to fly forward because we believe we are worthy, because we believe that we are able to add to a situation, because we believe that we are more than capable of rising to the occasion. So come on, let me go here. Let me go forward. So there's a book, a force greater than failure by Adrienne Townsend Benton you need to get. She has a quote says that your misstep was an occurrence, a behavior, a spoken word, but it's not your character, your value system, not your identity unless you accept it as such. So what she's saying here is that we need to learn how to identify moments and identify conditions. So if you know me at all, you know that in 2019, I had a pretty nasty health scare. I had a pulmonary embolism. It means that a blood clot had started or accumulated in my leg. And because of rigorous exercise, it broke off from my leg and went into my lungs. And so I was hospitalized for a week as doctors try to figure out whether or not this was an event or a condition. They wanted to understand whether or not what happened to me was something that happened out of the blue, or if this is something that I should expect to have occurred for me in the future. And as they scanned my body and looked around, they recognized that this was not necessarily a condition. This was an event. Now watch this. As people learned about what happened to me, many people had recommendations for how I should carry on my life afterwards. There were some of my people who didn't want me to wear high heels anymore because they thought I had a condition. There are some people who didn't want me to travel as much because they thought I had a condition. There were people who believed that I shouldn't exercise as much because they thought I had a condition. But my doctor had already let me know that I did not have a condition. I had an event. And so because it was an event, I should be mindful that this could happen, but that because it was not a condition of mine, that it's not something I should expect to happen. And so I didn't have to walk around with the amount of caution that other people wanted for me. I didn't have to slow down to the clip that other people wanted for me. I could actually move forward boldly because this event did not define my health. And I want to say this thing to many of you who have experienced failure. Many times you have had a failure in a moment that felt bad. It stung, it was challenging. But we have to be able to separate an event from a condition. You are not a failure. You experienced failure. You know what I'm saying? You are not a loser. You experienced loss. And when you realize that loss and being a loser are not necessarily mutually exclusive, that people who are winners sometimes lose, right? That you recognize that these hiccups are just part of the journey. They're just par for the course. You can continue to move forward with courage because you know that this moment does not define you. And I just want to speak into someone's life and say that moment that you're thinking about does not define you. You are not that moment. It was an event. It was something that happened in a blip. But this is not something that you have to expect from yourself over and over and over again. No, you can change the course of your future. You can change the course of your occurrences. You can actually change your behavior. You can change your disciplines so that you are not experiencing that anymore. Let me keep on moving. So how do you do this? First of all, I want to encourage you to just take one step at a time. Many of us are wanting to conquer an entire body of knowledge, an entire skill, an entire encyclopedia of understanding in one swoop, and it doesn't happen that way. But if you find yourself wanting to move in an area where it's been difficult for you, then I just want you to identify what is the next logical step to take in that direction. You may have had challenges in college and now you're sitting on credits and you don't know what to do next. Perhaps getting a tutor might be the next logical step. You may be going through a financial downturn and having some challenges with making bills. That's fine. You really have to have like big issues for it to mean that you're going to jail. But you might want to consult a financial counselor or pick up a financial book. You know what I'm saying? You may be, in a situation where you need to lose some weight. The COVID-19 is on you right now. You might not lose 19 pounds in a week, but you can determine that, with the weather that's warming up, that you'll go walking and eat less or start eating earlier for the rest of this week. Take the next logical step. And as you continue to pair those steps together, you'll see success. The next thing I want you to do is to celebrate progress. Okay. If you're walking, and this is one of the steps that we talked about last week in the 5 things that I learned in burnout, that as you are walking in a direction, that it might be a small step that you're taking in that direction, but if it's forward, it's progress. As you learn something new, it's progress. As I was coming on today, I had a challenge with the audio. I was dealing with Facebook earlier, but I'm on here. That's progress. I'm taking a step in the right direction. And so oftentimes we don't feel comfortable celebrating wins when they're small in our minds. When we don't have 10,000 people cheering for us, we don't think it's big, but cheer for yourself. You can be a cheering section for yourself. Do something nice for yourself and say, wow, I took a step in the right direction. I took a step in that direction. I'm going to be happy for myself. Progress. If you're progressing, then that means that at every step, you're in the perfect place at the perfect time. As you're progressing, you might not be fully grown, but each one of these plants, although they're not fully mature, are perfect for where they are. And many of us find ourselves comparing ourselves to other people who have been in space longer, who have more resources, and we're not recognizing that we are perfect for where we are right now. And I want to speak that into somebody's life. You are perfect for where you are right now. So when we try again, we choose to bet on ourselves. Understand, your employer bets on you every day. Your spouse bets on you every day. Your kids bet on you every day. But one thing that we are terrible at doing is betting on ourselves. If my employer trusts me to manage a $500,000 church every year and believes that I'm going to successfully deliver it and keep those numbers up, then why don't I trust myself with delivering a $50,000 business a year? If my employer trusts that I can manage 300 people successfully year over year, then why do I not believe that I can't attract 50 people on my own? Understand that these people are betting on you every day. They employ you because they believe that you can come through. We have to learn how to do that for ourselves. We affirm that we are worthy of support when we choose to bet on ourselves. And I'm saying you are worthy of support today. You are worthy of a cheering section. You are worthy because you show up every day. So look, I want to continue to share with you these kinds of outcomes. And I believe that Bloom in a Day is going to be an event that you should be a part of. On March the 21st, 2021, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., we are welcoming 4 incredible speakers to be with us. Alicia Jones, pastor of the Blessed Hope Seventh-day Christian Church in Erie, Pennsylvania. Sarah McDougall, who is an advocate for those who are abused, especially in religious spaces. Cheryl Pullins, who is an iconic branding strategist. And then Mignon Francois, who is a multi-million-dollar cupcake maven. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that this lineup is here. And I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this. And so if you want to be a part of this event and join with us, I'm telling you can do so by going to bloomday.lolajohnston.com. bloomday.lolajohnston.com. If you sign up there, you will not miss out. I'm telling you, you're going to be incredibly blessed. bloomday.lolajohnston.com. So I want to say thank you for joining me this afternoon. Thanks for spending this time. If you think this message will be a blessing, go ahead and share it with someone else. Also, you can find me across all social media platforms at My Bloom Coach. So you can go to YouTube now if your friends don't have Facebook, and you can sign up for YouTube. You can share that YouTube link with whomever, and please encourage your people to join bloomday.lolajohnston.com for the Bloom in a Day conference. All right. God bless you. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good day.